Right, we're going to build the Pulsar 2.2 metre dome top. We're going to start with the rear infill panel and 2 rear quadrants. These are denoted by 3 holes in them, 2 at the bottom, 1 at the top, whereas the front ones only have 2. We're going to use the 4mm Allen key and the supplied Allen bolts. So I'm going to start by assembling the panels and getting them aligned. Okay, to start the process, we're going to align the centre infill panel with the rear quadrant. There's a hole in the top, your M6 by 50 bolt through, and that will meet up with the threaded insert in the panel. And we'll just start that off and then move on to the next side. Okay, we're going to complete the rear section, M6 by 50, exactly the same as we've just done with the other panel, through the hole at the top, into the threaded insert, and just snug it up. At this stage, we don't need to have the bolts too tight because we will be double checking once all are fitted. Right, to continue the assembly of the rear section, we're going to use our M6 by 15 bolts with washers through the bottom holes on each side, just meeting the threaded inserts, and snug them up. There's no need to be too tight at this stage. We're going to go around and tighten everything as we go. Now we have our 4 bolts at the bottom. We can proceed to snug them up, checking the panel alignment underneath the panel. The join should be as close as possible with no discernible step. You will feel the join, but they should be at the same level. And once we're happy, we can just snug the bolts up and move on to the next join. Next up, we have the centre panels. This is the same for both sides, so we'll only show one. But on the outside, we use our M6 by 50 bolts through the hole in the top, meeting the threaded insert in the infill panel, snug it up, then we're going to move on to the internal bolts. Next up, we have the internal bolts. These are the M6 by 15s as supplied in the kit with the washers. We're just going to line them up and again, snug them up, check panel alignment, and then go through and tighten everything. Okay, after putting your bolts in, you want to just check this join. Again, make sure there's no step and everything is nicely aligned all the way underneath. Then you can tighten your bolts. Now we've got our sides on, our join's good, and all our bolts snugged up and tight. We can now fit either the shutter pulley or the rear chain guide if you have a remote dome. So if you have a manual dome, we have a shutter pulley and we have 2 moulding marks on the outside of the dome. They're quite faint, but if you just rub your finger over them, you'll be able to see them. And we're going to drill an 8mm hole through each of these points. We've drilled our 2 holes, put our supplied bolts and washers through, and now it's just a case of bolting the bracket in place with the supplied no-lock nuts. Okay. So when we've reached this stage with the 2 sides and all the back together and bolted up, we take our silicone, cut a rough 45-degree angle on the end of the nozzle, and literally just bead silicone into the join as you go. It's a nice steady pace, ensuring all gaps are sealed. Once we've beaded down the back, we can also do the sides, taking care to get underneath and all the way down. You can use a wet finger if need be to just ensure that you've got a good tight seal and a nice tidy job. We're now going to fit the shutter rollers to the shutter lid. Usually you have to run a 6mm drill bit through the holes, even though they are pre-drilled. It just serves to open them out a little bit. And we get our roller and our Allen bolt through the hole with the washer and then the 9-lock nut, and you tighten it up with a 4mm Allen key and your spanner. When it comes to fitting the front of the dome, it's pretty much the same as the back. Just offer up each quadrant, bolt, and then the last piece to go in is the small centre infill panel, which is the same as the rear panel, just much smaller. When we've reached this stage, if you have a manual dome with a shutter pulley, now is the time to fit the shutter lid, as we can bend the dome in to enable easy access. If you have a remote dome, different process. And finally, we're going to install the front panel and silicone the joints as we've done elsewhere on the observatory. Final job on the dome top assembly are the 4 bolts, 2 on the front panel, 2 on the back. They just come up from underneath, 6mm and a spanner, and just tighten just to lock this joint in place.